Ryan, let's move on to the Middle East and the invasion of the West Bank, which is ongoing right now. Tell us what happened.
So last night, the IDF launched what they called Operation Summer Camps, which is an invasion of major parts of the occupied West Bank, focused heavily on Janine, the refugee camp of Janine. So we can put this first element up. Associated Press was reporting that every entry in and out of Janine was being blocked by armored vehicles, and that
which you can see on the screen here.
Yeah, and that the hospitals were, they had blocked access to all hospitals and other medical centers. Their argument was they didn't want to allow people to kind of shelter in hospitals, and so they have said that this is the largest assault. The Israeli army announced that this is the largest assault on the West Bank since 2002 that will involve thousands of service members and will last for days, and they have said it's a preemptive attack on what they said is the buildup of resistance groups in these refugee camps. They just they just did a preemptive attack on Hezbollah. A lot of preemptive attacking going on. The preemptive attacks for decades at this point. At least 9 Palestinians were killed in this attack, which is a number that which pales in comparison to this day the numbers of deaths that you get in Gaza from the ongoing Israeli attacks. You're also having, and we can talk about this later in a bit, an attack on southern Khan Yunis by the IDF, a raid there, which appears to be based on intelligence gleaned from the Bedouin hostage who befriended. This is what we're hearing in the media. By all accounts, it appears to be true that he did. He had a good rapport with some of his captors, and has been debriefing with the IDF continuously since he was released, and that the coincidence of the kind of raid on South Khan Yunis seems to suggest that the IDF believes that they have intel that they can operate on. So we may soon be hearing new. The bodies of hostages being recovered, or more hostage rescues. The way that the Bedouin hostage was rescued, it turns out, was because communications were disabled, because the infrastructure is so completely annihilated in Gaza, that different Hamas operatives lost communication, and basically they weren't able to keep up with people. A number of hostages were recently found suffocated in a tunnel after an IDF bombing, and so there's a huge risk to hostages of the constant shelling and the constant attacks and destruction of the infrastructure, and the inability of their captors to communicate with each other, because they don't want them to die. They want to keep them alive. This guy you don't want to call anybody who went through that 10 months of hell lucky, but lucky in the sense that the tunnel didn't collapse on him and he didn't suffocate.
And we've heard that from other rescued hostages who said they felt like nobody knew where they were, and there was indiscriminate bombing around them. They didn't have confidence that they were being protected or safe, and they felt lucky. Basically, that's the implication there, is that we're lucky that we didn't die.
Right.
From our, I don't want to call it friendly fire because it's not exactly the same, but from bombing in Gaza.
Yeah. And what do we have to see too here? Put up this next element. This is Channel 14 is like Israel's Newsmax, basically. This is the Army's launched a large-scale military tower in several areas. At the same time, in Channel 14, one of the correspondents there said something like, "Everyone's survivor, you're all going to die." If you ever want some blood-curdling stuff, Channel 14 is the place to go. You can put up the third element here in this block. Yes, there it is. Terrorists in northern West Bank. The gates of hell have opened. Either you surrender or you die. Which, some interesting trash talking. Just weird from a journalist. I'm somebody who believes in, putting some passion into your journalism, and it's okay to have a point of view. just an interesting approach. Just a little weird. The gates of hell have opened. So anyway, Operation Summer Camp, according to Channel 14 in Israel, is the gates of hell opening on the occupied West Bank, which again, to be clear, is not Gaza and is not controlled by Hamas.
You know, yes, and the Operation Summer Camp with that in juxtaposition too, where the communication there is just, it's very, I mean, not surprising, but bizarre nonetheless.
I'm putting the fourth element here.
This is the Biden approving humanitarian aid to Gaza via the floating pier, despite warnings from the U.S. government that rough waves could pose significant challenges and objections. This is from Yashar Ali saying an IG report revealed that Biden himself approved this plan. Right.
Right. Which we would have assumed there's no way that this gets done without Biden, but this IG report has some interesting details that of people arguing logistically, quote, high waves was what they were calling it. You know, here we call it high tide. You know, they're like, look, this isn't going to work. Like the idea just logistically is dumb. And he's like, no, it's fine. Let's put hundreds of millions of dollars into this. And then separately, the report exposes internal objections, which kind of leaked out into the press at the time, and also were obvious. They were saying, there were people inside the State Department who were saying, this gives Israel an out on actually letting humanitarian aid through the ports of entry that already exist. Like, and if you remember from our reporting on this at the time, like, this is weird. Like, you're acting like there's some natural disaster around the rest of Gaza.
It's waves.
Where you're unable to just put food and humanitarian aid into trucks and drive it in and distribute it to people. Like, somehow that has become an impossibility, that what you need to do is build this, $500 million pier and then bring it in from Cyprus. But then as soon as they started loading supplies into Cyprus, the IDF was just crawling around Cyprus and doing the exact same thing with their pencil and their clipboard. Be like, oh, what number do you have on this truck here? Yeah, that number doesn't match what I have. Sorry, back of the line.
Well, we talked.
So, like, if you don't solve the problem, what is one extra port that doesn't even work going to do?
We talked to someone a couple of months ago, I think was in Cyprus at the time that we had that conversation with them about how trucks were being, and that's the United States wanted Israel to accept more trucks. And as a huge backer and funder of the war, if your ally, who's prosecuting this war, won't comply with that, you then spend how much money? I mean, what's the total on this pier to get around it? Because they won't let trucks through.
The only extent to which this worked at all is that because of this pier, that's when you had the World Central Kitchen convoy attacked by the IDF and killed. And because they attacked the World Central Kitchen because people in Washington, D.C. know Jose Andres, that embarrassed Biden enough that he made a phone call to Bibi and said, come on, this is embarrassing. You're killing me here by killing all of these people. And then all of a sudden, for a couple weeks, more trucks started getting in, proving the case that it was actually Israeli policy. The Israeli kept saying, because if it wasn't, then why could Bibi tweak it and all of a sudden more trucks are getting in? That obviously didn't last long. And the long-term effect of killing the World Central Kitchen humanitarian aid workers was that there were many fewer humanitarian aid workers willing to, for good reason, go out onto the distribution runs, which then led Israel to say, well, it's the United Nations and UNRWA that can't distribute the aid. It's really not our fault. It's their fault. Ignoring the fact that they had killed, more than 100 family and workers of UNRWA, and had led a global campaign to defund them.
There's some truth that there's some truth to the claims about UNRWA from the Israeli perspective, but we've talked about this before, when it's that embedded in such a tiny and concentrated population, that's sort of inevitable. And a big picture thought on this is it's post-World War II, these are all of the tangled, bizarre conversations that we have, and now we have international pressure that you feed civilians of your enemies, which is in the sort of aggregate a good thing and unusual in all of human history. But if you say that you're doing it, you got to do it if you agree to the terms. And if you want to, throw international law around like Biden does when it comes to Russia, and then flout it or fail to pressure people into complying with it when you're supplying arms, et cetera, it's obviously incredibly problematic. Let's put C5 up on the screen. This is a video of the hostage rescue. Yes, and that's actually a Muslim citizen of Israel, 52-year-old man was rescued. You can see the body cam footage from the IDF on the screen here. Like Ryan said, pretty lucky situation, but also worth mentioning that worth mentioning that this has re-upped calls from the family members of other hostages who have not been rescued, of which there are, I think, roughly an estimate of like alive 70, something maybe, like that, 60, yeah. 70 right now. Those families are calling for a ceasefire. So it has put that in a spotlight once again in headlines, that you have the family members, the loved ones of people who are still being held hostage, re-upping their demands for ceasefire, because this was the fourth successful recovery, I think, the fourth successful recovery by the IDF of hostages. But there are a lot of people who have been over there since October 7th, and their families want a ceasefire and they want them back. And that, domestically complicates the politics for Netanyahu as well.
Right, it's Wednesday. You could have all of the hostages, or an enormous number of the hostages, out by the end of this week if they would just agree to the deal that Israel already put forward. That's what's so wild about these ongoing negotiations, that Israel put forward a deal, Biden made that deal public, Hamas said, this works for us, let's implement this framework, let's do it. And Netanyahu's come back with, well, actually, we want a checkpoint in the Tsarim corridor, we want to control the access through Rafah, et cetera. And so we're back to a place where they're deadlocked again.
And yeah, okay, so that's important context to all of this too. That's where we are right now with the potential ceasefire deal, which was the Biden camp was saying was more and more likely as we went through the Democratic convention week, which I thought was very interesting timing. And now after DNC week is over, maybe these things are not, but my theory at the time was that it was public relations for the Biden campaign to say like, hey, this is going really, really well. We're doing a great job. We're almost there. And when the week turned to the next week, it became pretty clear that's not what was happening. Right,
and meanwhile, it's been interesting to see kind of Israeli society first mourning a lot of the children that were killed, who were kind of Syrian Arab children in occupied Syria, or calling them Israelis, and then saying they're going to attack Hezbollah over that, when the relationship between those populations and the Israeli government is mostly adversarial otherwise. And then if people want to look up how kind of the Bedouins are treated in settlements that are refused to be kind of recognized legally by the Israeli government, that's just an interesting juxtaposition here, watching this unfold. And as we think about the mass roundup that must be going on as we speak in the West Bank, it's worth noting this final element here. It's a human rights, just absolutely horrifying Human Rights Watch report that has come out, that is confirming a lot of what B'Tselem and other reporting has already shown us about the absolute, I don't want to say collapse of the Israeli detention system, because that suggests that it's something that was done accidentally. Smotrich, National Security Advisor Ben Gvir has said,
don't forget him.
Yeah, that has said that he wants conditions in these detention centers to be as horrifying as you could possibly imagine, and then some. And the Human Rights Watch report takes all the caricatures that you've understood about torture throughout the worst movies you can think of, and ratchets them up to 11. People, held naked, upside down, being, tortured with electrocution, sexual assault, rape. Well, I don't know if you noticed this, one of the accused rapists from that prison facility is now regularly going on like Israeli game shows and being kind of feted and celebrated as a way to say, like, look, we defend this, we support this. So check that Human Rights Watch report out.
Yeah, well, we'll continue to follow the story, of course.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.